camera time he wants to get out of it because the Democratic Party, which has a majority in the Senate and therefore grants chairmanships, wants him to have that Homeland Security chairmanship, even as he's promising to kill health reform. Joining us now is Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. He is the other independent senator who caucuses with the Democrats. He is a member of the Senate Health Committee. Senator Sanders, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight.
Good to be with you, Rachel.
You objected publicly to letting Senator Lieberman keep his chairmanship after he campaigned last year for Senator McCain and against President Obama. You said at the time, appointing someone to a major post who led the opposition to everything we are fighting for is not change we can believe in. A year later now, do you feel like I told you so?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Is the way he has behaved since keeping his chairmanship a surprise? He did promise that this would be a whole new chapter, a whole new day moving forward.
No, frankly, from my perspective, it's not a surprise. And I think the role that he is now attempting to play on health care is very, very unfortunate. The American people overwhelmingly want a public option for a variety of reasons. Correctly, they want a choice between a private insurance company and a Medicare-type plan, and they should have that choice. And maybe even more importantly, if we're serious about cost containment, if we're serious about the fact that we have to deal with the United States now spending almost twice as much per person on health care as any other country, you're going to need to have somebody, some entity competing with the private insurance companies so they don't continue to raise their rates. And that's what a public option does. So it's absolutely essential that we have not only a strong public option, but a public option that is available to as many people as we can possibly make.
If Senator Lieberman follows through on his threat and he does filibuster, it's quite likely that a bill containing a public option cannot pass the Senate unless it is brought up under reconciliation rules. Would you support that?
Absolutely. Look, the trick here is to do the best that we can for the American people, and that is quality, affordable health care for all of our people. And if we can't do it because we don't get 60 votes, then there are other ways that we have to proceed. And I would strongly support those other ways.
If it's not brought up under reconciliation, and if Senator Lieberman, whether or not he gets other conservative Democrats to go along with him, if they manage to remove a public option from the Senate bill, would you still vote for it?
It would be, at this point, you have to look at the whole bill.
Sure.
There are aspects of affordability in it. There are aspects of cost containment in it. You raised a very important issue that we can't retreat under a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress on a woman's right to choose. So there are a lot of issues out there. But frankly, I don't know how you have cost containment if you don't have a public option. I think a public option is absolutely imperative. It would be hard for me to support legislation without that.
Senator Sanders, what do you think will happen with that anti-abortion provision on the Senate side?
You know, Rachel, and you capsulized it pretty well with Diane. It is hard to imagine with a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress we would take a major step backwards in a struggle that women have engaged in for decades. So it just seems to me inconceivable that that can remain in the bill.
The White House wants a bill to be signed by the end of the year. They're reiterating that emphatically. Do you think delays work against the prospects for passing reform? Do you think it's important to do it before the end of the year? You
know, that's what the pundits all say. To my mind, it is infinitely more important to get it right. I mean, for example, this bill is going to cost $1 trillion over a 10-year period. Where's that money coming from? Is it going to come from a tax on the health care benefits of middle-class workers? Or are we going to raise that money in a progressive way? How many people will have access to a public option? Will it be 5%? Will it be 50%? How do we make sure that the insurance companies are not going to raise their rates rapidly so that we will be paying far more for health care than we should? All of these questions remain in the hopper and are going to have to be struggled with. But I think the evidence is pretty clear. The American people want not just any old health care bill. They want something that's strong, and they want something that's meaningful for working families in the middle class. That's the fight that we're undertaking now.
Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont, thank you very much for joining us tonight, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Some of the members of